Hello and welcome everyone to Six Figure Souls Doing Good and Making Money. This is a very special season where I am highlighting our members of the Natural Life Business Partnership, part of the Soul Professional Society, and sharing their businesses with you. I am Camille Miller. I am a Chief Business Strategist and Life Accelerator, and this is our weekly podcast. Today, my guest is Linda Natanagara. She is a trauma-informed somatic educator. Welcome, Linda, to our show.
Hi there.
Hi.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are so very welcome. Now, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now, and I love the work that you're doing. So I first want to talk, and let's bring up what a trauma-informed somatic educator is. So let's work with trauma informed, and then we're going to talk about somatic.
Okay. So trauma informed. Well, can we go the other way?
Yep, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. Somatic is that we recognize that the mind and the body are one thing.
Okay.
That in order to language, we've needed a language, and the language has separated the two. But all the Bessel van der Kolk and Stephen Levine, all the ideas around how we take in our experience and how it changes our biology. And so I work with the way we become dysregulated that creates and keeps going with anxiety and chronic pain and sleeplessness.
Okay. So is somatic the nervous system when we talk about that?
Somatic is the combination of mind and body.
Gotcha.
So that you can affect the body through the mind and the mind through the body.
So interesting. Because I'm asking because interestingly enough, I've been actually looking up some research on this because I see people posting, and I want to make sure I understand it, about like your money fears or whatever that is, and how it's held in the body.
Exactly.
And they're like, you can do yoga for it, and you can do all of this stuff to release that tension.
Yes.
And they're calling it all somatic therapy.
Yes. And I think it's really important to, specifically for trauma, whether it was shock trauma or long-term survival adaptations, that the people that I work with, and that is, you need to help people recognize it and then release it a little bit at a time. Because the idea that you can just, like, that we're like a light switch and we flip on and off, too much change too fast, our nervous systems can't hold on to, and will tend to regress back to the other thing. And so I think sometimes for a certain amount of people, they really need this very gentle sense of safety so that they can experience the sensations, the old sensations, and begin to have practices to emerge out of them. So I know it's big in the business world right now, but I really work carefully with a specific kind of the way people have embodied their trauma.
Okay. And you also say trauma informed. So let's introduce that term. And then I want to ask you a little bit more about the somatic.
Yeah, because I think it is it affects people's lives so much, either, like I said, long-term trauma, growing up in a dysfunctional environment that doesn't always, even in nice families, there often things have gone on that have created a lot of repression of physical sensations. So I honor it very much by knowing what I know and what I don't know. And so and I tell people who come to me with pretty serious situations that I'm part of their healing world, but I wouldn't claim to know everything, and I know where my limits are to refer them elsewhere.
Beautiful.
But I call what I do like regulated touch, because Feldenkrais is a very specific way of, I'm trained as a Feldenkrais practitioner, and it's a very specific way of supporting and touching a person so that it's not invasive and doesn't trigger those old feelings and those old physical responses to things. And I'm also trained to recognize when it might be happening and to know when to help somebody back out of it and create a sense of safety.
Gotcha. So is your work is it hands-on, or is it something you can also do online?
Well, it's interesting because Feldenkrais originally developed as a response to chronic pain and injury.
Okay.
So, but where my work has taken me, I think Feldenkrais practitioners, we all take it in a direction that fascinates us. So I do still teach class for my clients who, are recovering from injury or surgery, and I teach online classes for that. I see those chronic pain people personally as well. And then I also see the people who are coming for chronic anxiety and emergence from trauma. And I do that only in my office. I'm very much a like one-on-one with somebody in the room kind of person.
Yeah, so I understand. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, is like PTSD part
Mhm.
of something that you can
Yes.
do that because it
Yes.
triggers the nervous system?
Yes. And so it's helping people recognize their nervous system responses and giving them practices for emerging. And I just want to say that part of what can be so difficult in this world that is very you know, you do this therapy and you get this result. We're very binary with how we look at healing in
Yeah.
this industrialized world. And so the series of practices, they take a while, and you begin to emerge from the trauma and you notice how you'll begin to feel better or be more resilient. But it's not like, oh, I'm going to do this, and in this moment everything's going to be better. It's laying a foundation for healing in the nervous system rather than like a stretch and strengthen approach, even for psychology.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. And
Okay.
well, what I was going to have you explain is how is it different from like talk therapy? So if someone went through, say, abuse or something, is this something that they could do?
Okay, so I am going to say I realize there are a lot of this is a very sensitive subject for a lot of people, and I talk to my colleagues about this a lot. I believe that many people are resilient. Maybe they just developed a certain amount of resilience in their lives. And talking to somebody who is wise and kind and helps them look at things is maybe all they need. And there are then people who grew up in situations that was just long-term having to adapt
Mm-hmm.
to situations that maybe a young person isn't ready, doesn't know how to adapt to.
Yep.
And so I believe that creates physical change. Like that's not a woo-woo theory. Like when you
It
live with
does.
long-term stress, it creates physical change in your body.
Yep.
And I believe that for those people, they would really benefit from partial somatic and partial talk as well. But I think that the somatic part of it, once they feel safe to do it, sometimes it's too frightening. So
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
it's this dovetail in this wave of helping a person feel safe enough to begin to sense themselves in their body.
So do you also do the talking with them, or is that
No,
you
I'm
just do
not a
the hands-on
therapist.
part? So you're
Yes.
part of the team of healers
Yes. And
that,
I mean,
yeah,
and I can
okay.
sense, I really keep it to talking about their physical experience in the moment.
Okay.
And things will come up because develop a closeness. But I am not a therapist and I don't claim to do that kind of
Any of
work.
the talking part of it.
Right.
Okay, that's good
Right.
to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So is it possible then if people come to you and they say have a back pain, right?
Mhm.
Which is probably a common one,
Oh, so
right?
common. Yes. All day long.
That's why I chose that one. So back pain, but they don't really know why they have it. They may not be open to the idea that it's from a subconscious belief or something they're
Oh,
blocking.
yes. And you know what? I love that because
Okay.
it isn't always. So we all have our experience. Every time you have a thought or a feeling, it responds in your body, right? So we're all wrapped up in our physical experience, but there's there are ways of living in this world, and moving, and some are better than others. And so I help people recognize the habits that they've developed over time that create the discomfort that they have. And I mean physical movement habits, how they sit in a chair, their beliefs or knowledge about posture and breathing, making sure that all of their joints, that they understand how their joints, your joints are round. We're not like machines that move in planes, and helping them re-experience and reconnect all of their movement into their brain, into one moving system.
Right. So I'm curious, I kind of know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If there's times where you've been able to release pain and then comes the flood of emotion of everything that was behind there.
Sure. Yes. I mean, that'll happen. Do you mean like, do people cry when they're here?
I would think, yes.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they were
Yeah.
unaware that pain was connected to a certain emotion, and you help
Yes.
release or relieve that pain in some way. And then this gate
Yes.
opens.
Yes. But I think the main, what I've learned over so many years is to help somebody do that in a way that is gradual, so that often it's not like a floodgate, because you improve a little bit
That's
and
good to
you're
know.
okay with it. And then
Okay.
you improve a little bit more and you're okay with it, rather than like one big sudden thing.
Okay. That's a
Yeah.
good distinction.
Yeah. Because I think, if somebody, I would be afraid of that. Like, I don't like that idea of just losing and all of this stuff coming out. Like, for
Yeah.
me, my healing journey was gradual.
Yeah.
I'm still on, we're all on it, but
Yeah.
it was very gentle and safe feeling, not a traumatic. I think there are a lot of things that kick up a lot of trauma for people without giving them a sense of safety and foundation.
Yeah. So that's a great segue to my next question, which is, how did you get involved in this type of work? How'd you start?
So I'm trying to think of I trained as a dancer. I'm keeping the short version. I went through college, and then let's just say a lot of things happened, and I decided to go to school for massage therapy. And I was a massage therapist, and I recognized, I think maybe from dance, I had a more of a resonance with people's tone in their bodies. And it was like that I could massage them. And I do mean literally, a shoulder would release, and I would literally watch the person on the table like reclaim that shoulder tension.
Okay.
And I knew that no matter how much I hacked away at that muscle, it's not that massage is not great, but that this was a nervous system, a shape that people were holding in their brains that they didn't know that they had. They had no awareness that their shoulder went back up
Yes.
here.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know what this is, but what I'm doing doesn't address that. Like, there's another level underneath. And so I had heard about the Feldenkrais method. I was always interested in all the different movement modalities. And it was, let's see, I think I was 39 when there was a training in New York, and maybe I was a little bit younger, but there was a training in New York. Finally, they had all been on the West Coast. And so I finally decided to take a Feldenkrais training. When I went to the intro for it, they were holding, introductory discussions. And it was like, that is it. Like, that is what I have been looking for. That is exactly what I want to do. And it was like, I still get, when I think about it, and I've just never looked back. Like, that has been it. And I've gone deeper into elements of it, but I just like that answered all my questions.
Oh, I love that story. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, I still get like a little heart flutter when I
especially when you say like when you use the shoulder example, and a brain kind of remembers that form, so it goes back to it. I know it took me a long time, which I didn't know I did, but I was feeling tension that I sit like this all the time, like in a tense situation.
Yes.
So now I consciously pull my shoulders down when I sit, and trying to have a different form to myself. But sometimes I'm like tapping on the computer, catching my kid's shoulders. And I was like, okay, stop.
Yes.
Because you can feel the tension, and it's training my body. That is not the way we hold it.
Right.
So interesting.
Feldenkrais is about building your mental map of yourself in space and all the movements so that the lessons are constructed. It's meant to do more than once, right? You do Feldenkrais lessons like regularly to keep your entire moving system going so that your brain has access to all of that. And to learn to pay attention, like you have that really big example, right? And we all have things that we do that we don't realize that we do.
Right.
And so we go to the gym with all these habits, and then we try to exercise, and there are a lot of people very injured because they don't know first the habits of their own moving. And so that's what Feldenkrais teaches people, is how to move efficiently with distributed tone,
I love
and
that.
to stay uninjured.
So I would assume you kind of said it, that people work with you over time.
Yes.
With slow release, it's over time. Is it like a physical therapy kind of idea? Like you do it for a while?
No, it's not.
Okay. These are all important questions for our
They
listeners, so that's
are.
why I'm asking.
And so the thing I love about it, well, I love so many things about it, but once you learn the difference, it's called a neuroplastic practice. So that's
Okay.
even more unusual sometimes than to say somatic practice. Once you learn how to, you understand what it is and you learn how to do it, you really don't need me as much. My goal is not to keep people coming to me. Some people do because they like it, and we just keep going down this road of opening up their movement. But you can really then, that's why I teach the other classes, like the online classes. You can take a class and very often get what you need to keep yourself out of the habits. When you have discomfort, I will speak for myself, and I think most of my clients, like, I know that I'm not injured. Like if I overdid something and I have a little bit of pain, I understand what it is and how quickly that I can come out of it.
Okay.
Rather than, because I have a set of skills and attention and understanding of my own movement, that I'm not trapped and frightened by a little bit of discomfort.
And is this something, once someone learns, is it something that they need to keep up all the time pretty much? Like it always has to be in their conscious awareness?
You know, and what's wrong with that?
No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I'm just pointing out that you
Because
can't do it for a couple of weeks and be like, I did it. Now I'm
No,
done. It's just
and
like inner work. It doesn't stop.
it doesn't stop. And I got to tell you, it just keeps giving. You just keep like peeling a layer and getting something about your shoulder. And then you realize, oh, I always contract my belly when I do that. And I stop breathing. Like it just keeps going. And if a friend of mine said this recently, and I'm pointing at you, I'm sorry. A friend of mine said this recently, and I loved it. Like, we are living longer, but we have no skills and tools for how to live differently in a body that is older. We keep applying the same rules to it. And I think a neuroplastic practice is the best thing anybody could do, because it keeps your movement out of those compressive, habitual ways that create wear and tear and create arthritis or exacerbate arthritis, etc.
So I'm also hearing, as someone ages, this is actually a really good practice.
It is. I wish everybody did it when they were younger, but you know, I remember when I was a dancer, you couldn't have told me this stuff like in my 20s. Yes, it is.
I'm just going through this phase now that I just shared in another call. I'm 56. And I was a college athlete. I've done stuff my whole life, but ever since COVID, I've really let it all go. Like I stopped going to the gym. I stopped training. I don't do triathlons anymore, like nothing. And it's almost like I've just accepted that I'm getting old and I'm going to just, right. And I had this awakening this weekend of, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Of stop it. You got to get back to the gym, and you have to, like, I still hike and stuff, but I'm more exhausted, or I also realized my flexibility
Mhm.
and like precision, things that I always knew, I'm a little more wobbly. Like, and I'm like, you know
Yes.
what? I can continue to go down this road, or I can go fix it now and stop
Right.
accepting it as getting older.
Exactly. That
Right?
message
Yeah.
of aging makes me really,
Yeah.
like, I have a lot of really strong feelings and responses to these things because I feel like they are so, this message of aging and, oh, your knees hurt because you have arthritis. Like,
No.
you do not, once you learn, begin to understand like the rules of movement. So that's another thing I do. Like, there's neuroplastic, you kind of do these movement puzzles that unlock a lot of these patterns in
Hmm.
a class, the classes that I teach, not the one-on-one work. But there's also, there's like 5 rules of movement, and nobody's teaching them to anybody. So we're all going to the gym with our habits and our patterns. And
Yeah.
like, so everybody can age much better than they think they can. That I
Yeah.
really encourage you to, and I wish everybody had a neuroplastic practice. People come to me post-surgery and they're like, why didn't anybody tell me? Like, why was this not part of my recovery?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think a lot of Western medicine at least has separated
don't
the
get me
mind and the
started.
body. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're just acknowledging it here.
Okay. Yes. Yes, we
We're just
are.
acknowledging that we know,
Yes.
and
And
we
that
have to bring that back.
right. And that there are much more options than people know about, but they have to seek them out. They're not going to hear about them in more traditional settings.
Yes, absolutely true.
Yeah. So go
Absolutely true.
you. I go
Yeah.
do whatever you need to do.
I always say just like look in the world for evidence. Like, for me at 56 to just say, well, this is what it's I'm just not going to be able to do what I used to do. And I was like, okay, that's not really true because there's 70-year-olds still doing triathlons, right? I was not
Right.
the oldest person there. So
Right.
clearly
Exactly.
that is not the end, right? The end game.
Yes.
I'm choosing it, right?
Right.
And maybe my next goal should just be to go do one again, right? And
Yeah.
and kind of, I don't have to beat my time,
Right.
right? I could choose to do that though too, right? But
Right.
I could just be like, okay, how about you haven't done it in 5 years? How about you just go do it? Right. So,
Because you
and
have the building blocks there for it.
of
Like
course I
that.
do, right?
Yeah. Yes. So, and I don't like to refer to myself very much, but I think people think there's something like different, like, oh, you're like that because you were a dancer. No, I'm like, because I was a dancer, I am more broken down than the average. And maybe, were you a gymnast? Was that what it was?
No, no.
Okay. But like, athletes tend to actually have more access to injury as they get older. But I feel as if having this kind of practice, like my husband, like, we can't find many people to play disc golf with because everyone's shoulder is injured. Like, we don't have to live like that.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing special about me or my shoulders, but I know how to use them.
Yeah.
And
And yes,
so,
I see. I totally
yeah,
get it because I look for more active groups, right?
yeah,
That's how I actually like to spend my time. I'm not going to do it
yeah,
eating and drinking, right?
right.
Not that I never do it eating and drinking,
Oh,
right? But I'd rather, so now I belong to a lot of hiking groups, right?
nice.
But I chose not to
Awesome.
do like, there's one that just do like really high peaks. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't need to prove to myself to do that. I'm not going to hit
Yeah.
all 7 peaks of the tri-state area. And like, I don't need to do that. But I do 4 and 5 hour hikes with people my age. Right. And I
Yes.
do these other hiking groups because that's what keeps me busy. I actually started classical and Latin dance classes.
Oh,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
But because I was like, I have to keep my body going. And it was after hiking and after doing this that I just went, you know what? I need to get back in the gym and start training again.
And
I'm not training. That is not like right now.
right.
And I'm just like, the idea is just go back. Just
Yes.
go back
And I
and start
love,
doing what you used to do, because I
it.
can tell when I hike that I'm not as sure-footed as I used to be.
Right.
Right.
And
And
so
I'm like, that's how injury happens. I'm going to fall down the steps one day and it's going to hurt. Right. I'm going to
yes,
hurt myself because
yes.
I didn't do all of this. And I think athletes, dancers, I was a basketball player, like whatever it is, we know our bodies
Mm-hmm.
because we've, what's the word? We've tested them all along.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of. I know in my 20s, I was probably way more capable, but even in my 50s, I'm 56 now, but I was playing basketball in my 50s, like I was still playing.
Yeah.
So, right. And I remember I had a frozen shoulder once and going to the doctor and being like, it's my shooting arm. Like we have to get it better. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, we'll never get it 100% again. And I was like, yes, we will. Don't tell me that. Like, you do not tell me that. And you know what? I got it 100%. And I actually think it's stronger. But I went back to him for my other shoulder
Mm-hmm.
like 2 years ago because I heard it rock climbing.
Mm-hmm.
This shoulder is actually still weak because I heard it rock climbing and it hasn't been
Mm-hmm.
fixed. And he's like, can I test your other arm? He's like, I'm just kind of curious. And he's like, oh my God, you have full mobility. Like you did not. And I was like, yeah. He's like, how'd you do it? I was like, I did my PT 3 times a day myself
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it's my shooting arm.
Yeah.
Right. So I
Right.
think we
Right.
have this resilience of, yes, I can. Don't tell me I can't.
Yes.
Yes, I can. It's like when
It,
I was playing basketball in my 50s, right? People are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I don't play at the level I used to play, right? I play in an older league. It was like
mm-hmm.
30 and over, right? But it's knowing what's capable. And plus today, if you get hurt, like that wipes out my income too, right? So like
Oh,
it
yes.
has different but
Yes.
I think there's a mindset to athletes that test their body, know their limits. I mean, I find that athletes make good business and entrepreneur people too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they take the risk. They know what they can do. They know their
Right.
limits and they're
Right.
willing to test them and not listen to everything else.
And I think that is such a great point. Like it is just removing a person in authority, removing somebody's hope. Like you
Yeah.
knew better and you said no to that.
Yeah.
But the people that come into me and they tell me things that they're told, that it's like there is so much potential for improvement. And you have to know how to get at it. Because after a certain point, for you it did, but the
Yeah.
PT is too mechanistic and it doesn't do the thing that you need to really regain a lot of that freedom and integration of a joint. And plenty of people do just fine with that,
Yeah.
but then there's a big segment who
Understood.
don't.
Yeah.
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 And I just wish that everybody knew and had hope for what they're capable of.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love it.
So I
Thank
love it.
you.
So I'm so glad that you regained full use of that arm.
Thank
Like
you.
I'm so proud of you. That's awesome.
Thank you. Awesome. Linda, I loved this conversation.
Oh, so did I. Well, thank you so much. I
You
got
are
so
welcome.
much more, but
Oh,
that's a start.
we can talk more, but how can people find out more about you and your work?
So my website is articulatemoves.com,
Okay.
and you can reach me at linda@articulatemoves.com. And I have sign in for a newsletter there. And I teach occasional workshops and classes. About once a month, I teach a free Saturday morning intro to
Oh,
Feldenkrais. It's a neuroplastic practice to help people understand that it's not a workout, that it's a different kind of movement
okay.
than what than what we're used to. And I'm teaching a breathing. I'm very dedicated to helping people reclaim their breath. So I teach I'm a Buteyo Breath Coach, but I'm teaching a Feldenkrais based breath series for the month of February on Wednesday nights.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and that's on my website, and people can just look and just to get information, just to understand that it's a different approach than, again, body as machine.
I love it.
It's body as living thing.
Yeah. And all of Linda's information is in our show notes. So if you're listening to
Oh, thanks.
this, You can check out the show notes and all of Linda's information, and her links and everything else is there. If you can't find her, you can always contact us directly, and we will definitely put you in touch with Linda. Thank you,
But
Linda, for
you're
being my
welcome.
guest today and sharing
And
all of your knowledge and wisdom.
well, and I love your determination to keep moving. And so, I mean, you run a wonderful organization. You've been such a service to all of us, but you really set a leading example by refusing to, accept that you're not going to move anymore.
Yeah.
So look forward to hearing about your triathlon.
I'll let you know because I do it down by you.
Oh, good. Good. I'll come out.
Yeah. All right. Well,
All
thank you,
right.
Linda.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
all of our listeners, for being a part of our podcast today. Again, my name is Camille Miller. If you want to learn more about the Soul Professional Movement and the Soul Professional Society that I run, go to soul, SOUL, professional.com. Thank you again, Linda, and
All
we'll talk to
right. Take
everyone
care.
soon.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye, everyone.